I've had the privilege of working with Brian since he was 17. Brian started with us as a receptionist in our office. Interestingly enough, he wasn't actually great as a receptionist. He went out and he finished his fast start, sold $1,000 his first day on the job, and then took a little vacation. Worked very part-time his first summer, won a President's Club letter, was a part of our integral team, which was really next level in 2017, helped us be an assistant manager. And the next 2 years, he ran his office. 1 year ago today was Saturday, February 29th. And Brian and I and my family and some other people were in London, traveling around London. Right now, it would have been 7 p.m. And it's just crazy because at that point in time, this was like a week before the pandemic really started. I was saying my goodbyes to Brian because I was like, well, he's going to graduate from Syracuse with a film degree, and off he was going to go to make movies. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened, as you all know, but we found a great opportunity. He was our sales manager, helped us be the #1 office in the world last year. And now he's running his own business in Madison. They're the #4 office in the world. I'm so proud of what this young man has accomplished, not just in the last 52 weeks, but also in the last 5 years of his life. He's going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal film future superstar in the business. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to share with you our featured speaker to wrap us up, our district manager in Madison, Wisconsin, Mr. Brian Charles Fitzgerald. Brian, take it away, please.
Thank you, Danny. All right. Well, what a great event. Thank you to all the region staff, just to reiterate what Danny said, and all the speakers for your messages as well. With these events, there's always a lot of great content. So my outcome in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so is to kind of help you put it all together and create a plan to implement it over the next couple weeks. So that is my main outcome for the message. And let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, thank you all for being here these last 5 hours and 2 days. I know that, as a student and as a busy college student myself, I was always, trying to find time for certain things. And the fact that you all took the time to find it and really come to the meeting was really important and impressive. And it really showed that your commitment to your growth and your own self-development. So thank you for that. And thank you for your attention thus far. So the first thing I'll do is I just get out a pen and paper. Let's just start with 3 simple questions to ask ourselves. And I think this is what I would do and what I always do leaving every single event and every conference, because there's probably a million things that you learn. So let's just get really focused on what we can take away and implement over the next 60 days. So the first thing is, what's the most important thing that I learned, right? Think of it, maybe it's the certain message that you resonated with. Maybe it's something said at a round table that really struck with you. Maybe it's something from a message you weren't expecting that you got a bunch of nuggets out of and a bunch of, really great tips and feedback from. I'm going to be talking in ideas throughout this, but this is just an activity to write as you go. So what's the most important thing you learned? Maybe it's a new approach. Maybe it's a new way to think about things. Probably the single most. And if you can't pick one, pick like top 3 or top 2. And then number 2 is, what's the first thing you're to implement? Knowledge is great and these resources are great and what we learned is awesome. But if you don't implement in the next 48 hours legitimately, or start to implement, you're going to start to lose what you learned. So it's really important to implement it, because knowledge isn't that important, but what you apply when you learn stuff, that's what's important. So what's the first thing you're to implement? It could be something as simple as like this joke to say on a demo. What Siggy Steve said, if you like this, you're going to love this on a demo. Like very simple things, but it's important to get really focused. What's the first thing you're to implement? So I would say take your favorite talk, favorite thing you learned, implement it right away. Maybe it's as simple as, with what Jason said, getting a calendar. Are you a weekend rep or a weekday rep? And really organizing that. And then lastly, what's your #1 outcome in the next 58 days? I believe I did the math correctly. That is until the end of the campaign, April 26th. Was your #1 outcome in the next 58 days? It could be a CPO goal. It could be, I'll walk through some ideas for awards later, but it could be a President's Club award. Maybe it could be to sell your first filmmaker, whatever it is. All right, Gage here. We got our questions written down, got our answers written down. Sweet. I would encourage you to share that stuff with your manager. Just send him a text. I think that's really crucial. It also gives us feedback so we know which talks were really effective and how we can help out make really great events. So definitely send this stuff to your manager. So here are some my simple keys in terms of how to utilize the vector opportunity to have a really great spring. Okay. So there's 3 simple keys that I'm going to walk through, and then I have a couple other ideas. So number 1 is be disciplined with your actions. Be disciplined with your actions. Jason spoke a lot about this, so I'm going to expand on it a little bit. I would say the biggest thing to understand is if you're in a class and you get an A, very rarely is that because you crushed one test. Sometimes you have classes that are big on projects, but even so, it's the accumulation of what you learned over the semester that helps you succeed. And that's with everything, right? People don't get good at skills because they have one day or one moment or one instance where things go really well. They get good by building the foundational blocks over time in order to succeed on a consistent basis. So it's really important that you take the actions that are going to make the difference on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. One thing Danny taught me was to gain extra time to plan and prepare for busier seasons, like the summer for a manager. So what I've been doing and what I would encourage you to do is I spend 1 hour a day. I get up 1 hour earlier than I'm used to and plan for the summer. Now that may be different for you. Let's say you have, you're feeling a little bit behind and struggling with some of your classes for the students. So maybe 1 extra hour a day to study your classes. 1 extra hour a day is 7 extra hours a week. Let's say you only do it on the weekdays. So it's 5 extra hours a week. Over a month, that's 20 extra hours to study. 20 extra hours to master a skill, 20 extra hours to plan. Over 5 weeks, it's about an extra day a month or so. So little actions over greater periods of time make the biggest difference. So the question is, what can you commit to? I think it's really important to take action after conferences as soon as possible. So as a personal example, in the branch summer of 2018, my first summer, so this is a very Cutco related story, was, it did not go well from a numerical standpoint. I learned a lot, it did not go well. And I needed to sell 10,000 over the month of August in order to hit the trip for the Cayman Islands, right? Keep in mind, I was only at about 20 grand in sales in a couple summers, so I wasn't exactly the greatest sales rep, but I really was committed to hitting it or whatever that goal was for me. So the first thing I did to commit was like, all right, I'm just going to make 30 phone calls right away. Everybody left the conference because this was all in person. They all drove away like 5, 6, 7 hours back to like wherever. I pulled into the parking lot. I made 20 calls. I booked 0 demos, but I made 20 calls. I took action and before I went home. And I didn't book any demos on that time. I didn't even make a sale off of that instance or those numbers that I called. But what it did is created a schedule and a commitment to the actions over the results. So what did I do? I made 20 phone calls or 40 phone calls every single day, the whole month. I did more demos than I ever had. I sold 12 grand, whatever. But the point was that action every day on a consistent basis was what caused me to do those things. So what can you commit to? Is it a certain number of champs clubs a week, right? Is it a certain number of calls a day or a week? You can even do it weekly, right? Some people are like, read every day. My thing is like, I set objectives to finish books by month because my schedule fluctuates and that's what works with me. But with working out, I do it every day because that just like keeps me consistent. Does that make sense? So for you, it's like, what can you commit to on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? And the actions you take to get better at the skills you want to develop, right? Let's say you want to get better at planning. So do you have time in your schedule to plan every week and then adjust it every day? Let's say you want to have more efficient study times. It's like, okay, well, how can you commit to having better study times? Does this make sense? So just jot down an idea or two, okay? So be disciplined with your actions on a consistent basis is really what's going to get you the results and the outcomes that you really truly desire. That's number 1. Number 2, have a coach. I recently just rewatched The Last Dance this week. If anyone's ever seen it, if you're not a basketball fan, it's fine. Like, I've never made a three-pointer in my life, but I think the documentary is awesome. So I watched it for about like the third time the other week. So a little bit of a reference here, but more importantly, I learned a lot of the importance of having a coach. Your coaches in this business, what's great is they're your manager, right? And they're the people that can really help you out, or they're a lead assistant manager, like a sales manager, right, et cetera. What do coaches provide you with? Number one is support, right? We pick you up when you're feeling down. We help you out. Number two is guidance. We give you the clarity and the direction you need in order to help you succeed, because I can promise you, we've probably been there, or we can help you with someone who has been there. And number three, sometimes coaches will challenge you. So in regards to The Last Dance, I think about Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan, for example. Whether you think Michael Jordan's the best or not, that's not, the point of this. He's great, right? And then Phil Jackson, though, is kind of arguably one of the best coaches of all time in any sport. Again, up to your personal opinion. But what I found interesting about The Last Dance and interesting about the story of Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan, arguably one of the greatest pairing of coaches and players ever, was Michael didn't like Phil at the beginning, right? When Phil came to the Bulls, he had replaced Doug Collins. And Doug Collins, the entire game plan was to give the ball to Michael Jordan as often as possible. As a top player, he very much enjoyed that. He won multiple scoring titles, but they never won a championship. And what Phil Jackson did is he challenged Michael Jordan and challenged him to utilize his teammates and not put everything on himself. He challenged him to pass the ball, to move it around, and challenged his core beliefs, because Michael Jordan's core belief and limiting belief at the time was that he had to do everything, and he was the person to depend on. And because Phil taught him to utilize his teammates, they won 6 championships in 8 years. And a big credit to that, for their first championship, for example, Michael Jordan didn't make the game-winning shots. John Paxson did, because he passed the ball and trusted his teammates. So coaches, what's so great about coaches is that they will challenge your ideas and beliefs in order to help you achieve the goal that you want. Because Michael Jordan wanted to win a championship, and Phil Jackson wanted to win a championship, but their ideals weren't aligned. So that's what's so great about coaches. And they can really help you out in that. And everybody, regardless, has a mentor or a coach. So even if you leave Vector and you don't have your manager that you used to, that's fine. But I would encourage you to find always a mentor and a coach. Someone in school, maybe it's a professor that you really align with that can really help you out. Those things are really important. Okay. And next one is accountability. So we provide a lot of accountability, and coaches can do that. There are many a time where I am not feeling up to doing the things that I want to do. And coaches, keep me accountable, because it's not about how you feel before you do a task. It's always how you feel after completing the task, right? I don't feel like phoning sometimes, but I never regret phoning. You probably don't feel like doing homework or writing a paper, but you never regret it. You probably don't feel like cleaning your apartment or cleaning your house, but you never regret doing it. And coaches will help you provide that accountability, because how you feel after a task is more important, and they'll help you with that. So that's why it's important to have a coach. And if you need more mentorship from your current manager, reach out. We're happy to help, and we'd love to talk to you more if that's something you would like. Next one is to be a student. I think it's always important to have a commitment to learning at whatever you choose to do, whether it's a rep, an assistant manager, a district manager, a branch manager, division manager, or even a region manager or CSP. It's important to have a commitment to learning in school, out of school, with whatever skill you need. Because as you grow and learn, the better you will get at your job, and the better you'll get at everything. If you're not the greatest writer of papers in terms of it being efficient, go ask someone who is and what skills they use. Right? Read books, reach up and reach out. Always be asking questions and looking to learn. I think the greatest thing you can do in terms of improvement is to always ask questions from everybody, and be open to the fact that many different people in your life are going to have advice on different things. And the more open you are to listening, the more you learn. And I think that's what's crucial. Field training specifically for Cutco is huge. If you don't know how to do something on a demo, go watch someone's demo. Your system managers, your sales managers, other people in your division, just ask the number one rep in your office, in your division, and it can be even in the region. And field training is always crucial because you can see it live and see how people actually implement it. Okay. So be a student. Be a student. Right. So those are 3 simple tips in terms of improving with Cutco. Be disciplined with your actions, have a coach, and be a student. I would also encourage you to check in where you are. This is something I read from James Clear on his newsletter. He also wrote Atomic Habits, which many managers are familiar with. But it's beginners focus on execution. I don't know how to phrase this, so I just wrote intermediates, I guess. I don't think that's a real word, but it works. Focus on strategy, and experts focus on mindset. So it's important to check in where you are. And for different things, there are different purposes, right? So you may be experts in some places and total beginners in others, and that's okay. But it's important to know. So let's say you're a brand new beginner at selling bigger sets. Let's use Elliot's talk as an example. So the first thing I would focus on is, hey, let's execute the 3-set close like you talked about. Let's focus on executing the tasks in order to get better, right? So I've been learning a new social media program in the business, and my first focus was executing interviews and training. Number 1. Now, number 2, let's say you've moved on. How do you know if you've moved from a beginner to an intermediate or an expert? It's when the latter stops being a problem. You have no problem executing like the 3-set close. You have no problem asking for recs with confidence, right? You have no problems with running a PC, as an example. The next is focus on strategy, how you strategize to make it the most effective use of their time. This could be prospecting in Cutco, right? For selling bigger sets. You know how to execute now the 3-set close, so that's what you focus on first. You focus a lot on Elliot's tips. Now, what's the best strategy for selling big sets is seeing the right people. So then you can focus on the strategy of prospecting. And then lastly, experts focus on mindset, how you mentally approach it. This is where you talk about your beliefs in terms of selling sets, or how do you think? And it's 1 stage at a time. So check in where you are at certain tasks and focus on whatever correlates to it, whether that be execution, strategy, or mindset, I think is really big. Now, in the last 5 minutes, let's talk about what's available to you. Over the next 60 days, 58, there's a lot of things you can achieve here. And having a specific goal allows you to have a great trajectory for why you want to do it and a greater purpose, just like what Jason was talking about earlier. When you have a goal in mind, it's easier to do the little things, right? So first of all, K-Club, if you don't know what that is, that's selling 1,000 a week. I think that's a really simple goal to hit in terms of your income if you want to work that much. K-Club, really simple. It's 10 weeks in a row, 1,000 a week. It's really difficult, but it's really important because it teaches you how to be consistent. President's Club, this one should be like a done deal. $4,000 between Tuesday and the end of April. Please get that done. It looks unreal on a resume and will help you out with every job. There's All-American scholarships, whether that be in sales or in team building. So if you know I'm looking for a job, you can talk to your manager about that. Maybe it's a key staff promotion. Maybe it's an assistant manager promotion. A lot of offices are looking for more assistant managers. And by being a leader, you may earn the right to a promotion. And it necessarily doesn't matter how much you sell, as long as you do the best you can with the time you have and you show up and be consistent. And your manager will communicate to you exactly what it takes to be promoted. So these are what's available to you. And I think it's important to really focus and pick one thing and one outcome you have in terms of in Cutco while you're here. Because if you know that you want to do K-Club, it's really easy to make phone calls. You may not like it, but you understand the importance of it. Similar to like, if you want to get a certain GPA, it's easier to spend X amount of time studying. If you want to develop better relationship with your friends, it's easier to spend more time with them. Does this make sense? If you want to have an outcome. So having an outcome for the future helps with your actions in the present, and that's what I would pick it. In terms of implementation of these talks, I would encourage you to implement 1 talk per week when you're doing demos. So maybe this week is Elliot's talk, next week Siggy Steve's talk, 3rd week is Jason's talk. Just pick a talk that you think you would resonate with this week and really implement it. And I would encourage you to re-listen. The more we listen to things, the more we pick up on what we need right now. So I listened to, there's a talk on Vector Connect called Ignite. It's great. I think it's super interesting. I've listened to it 100 times. That's not an exaggeration. I actually have the data because I would drive to the office in Kenosha. It'd be 45 minutes. I'd get there 10 minutes early and the talk was 55 minutes. So every day I listened to it because it would get me in the right space. You don't have to listen to a talk 100 times, by the way. But what I learned in that process was every day I would pick out something that would resonate with me based on what I needed at that moment. So listening to things over and over and over again really helps you resonate and understand things. I wanted to get better at my interview this fall. So I listened to a recorded interview every day for 2 weeks because that's what helped me stick with it. And it's easier for me when I'm like cleaning or doing dishes or whatever to listen to things, and that really helps. So I would encourage you to re-listen. I believe the talks are going to be emailed to you, and I would just go over it over and over again. And finally, my concluding thoughts is embrace the opportunity you have. Vector is a great place to be until you figure out where you want to be. Whether you're here for a month, a year, 10 years, whatever, just give it your best and you won't regret it. Most of you probably are just here for a couple months and you're going to move on. Well, you might as well take advantage of the opportunity. Some of you may stick around a lot longer and just really embrace the skills that you can really gain here. Be open to the possibility of sticking around. You may not, but be open to it. And when you leave this place better than you found it, leave the skills you learned better than you found it, and leave as a person better than when you got here. So those are my thoughts. Thank you all for your time and have a great weekend.